focused on to alternative access to the park other than cars. But there are many solutions, improved greenway access to the park, a shuttle bus, a reservation system for the park that, directs people to off-peak ferry times, working closely with TransLink to expand, bus service to the park. There are many responses that we can explore once we understand the nature of the challenges at hand. So that's a priority, and that's something that we'll be undertaking through the planning process.
Yeah, it sounds like it's too early to address many of these questions.
It certainly is not too early to understand the questions and start to ask the questions and get the data required to respond accordingly. We're at the beginning of the process where we're understanding the big questions. We're starting to explore what the park could look like on the land. And through that process, we'll respond to all these questions. But certainly there's a plan in place to do it. And we know there are options. And, at some of our other parks throughout the region, we're already starting to explore, shuttle bus service in the summer. What would that look like? And trying to understand how to best accommodate people in a park that is low impact to the environment and of course neighbors as well. And in large part, we've seen good success with that. I think it's also important to note that, in the preliminary ideas for camping or for tent camping on site, it's not what's being considered is not an RV park kind of experience. So, it's about group camps and walk-in, bike-in tent sites and some accessible drive-in tent site and tent cabins, but not for RVs. And in fact, it's geared to be sort of low-impact, nature-focused, car-optional camping that provides opportunities for everyone in the region to connect with nature and access this incredible landscape. But like I said, it's not for recreational vehicles or trailers. Fires won't be permitted on site, and the nature of the land that's been cleared for large residential lots, there's ample cleared area to accommodate that. So it's not about clearing natural land to accommodate, that kind of facility.
So one of the questions I've heard is a concern about the number of campsites that you've proposed. I'm curious where that number comes from, and is that number negotiable?
When the land was brought forward, as I said, there is a preliminary concept assessment done, and what it included was 3 group campsites, I think approximately 50 walk-in, bike-in tent sites, and I believe around 35 drive-in tent sites and a few tent cabins. So really that assessment looked at the land. And as I said, this area was previously cleared for development. So the land was cleared, wells have been drilled, there's roads in place. So the nature of the nature of the land, there's an ability to accommodate that kind of program on site. So that's where that assessment came from. And the idea for camping is really driven by the desire for access and the understanding that there's incredible benefit to spending time in nature, and the nature of the camping that's proposed could support local people visit or using camping gear without car access or without making an investment in a trailer and that kind of thing. So that was how that assessment was done, looking at the land and what was available. I think we're at a process now as we begin the process to look in greater detail of what can the site accommodate, from an ecological perspective and through transportation and access. And that will inform where we end up with in a detailed proposal for the park.
Is the pushback from Bowen residents much the same as other communities?
Well, I wouldn't actually characterize what we've experienced as pushback. As I said, we're just at the beginning of the process, and overwhelmingly what we've heard is excitement around the proposal. So, and the potential that it presents. So, it's 97 hectares of incredibly sensitive land that's going to be preserved in perpetuity. There's going to be new opportunities to connect with nature. It's going to support the UNESCO Biosphere Reserve. There's opportunities to advance reconciliation and work hand in hand with Squamish Nation. There are many benefits associated with a project of this nature. So most of what we've heard has been quite positive. But yes, of course, there's always questions, right? And we've mentioned some of them, the concerns about access and balancing what kind of facilities are in the park and the timeline and process and everything. These are questions we hear, as big projects come up, and that's certainly understandable.
Can you talk to what's happening at Davies Orchard?
Yes, well, the Davies Orchard project is an important one, and it's proceeding. We're actually expecting that construction will begin on site this fall, and I'm sure many folks listening to the podcast will be familiar with the project. But I would say it's a really exciting project, arguably one of the most exciting and ambitious heritage-focused initiatives currently underway in the Lower Mainland. The first phase of work, and that'll begin before the end of the year, will include the restoration of 5 cottages on site. Now, 4 are currently in use, and 1 is not in use. It's in poor condition. But we'll embark on the restoration of those 5 cottages, as well as some infrastructure upgrades to support them, sewer, electricity, and that kind of stuff. But it's a major initiative, and we do intend to get going on that work before the end of the year. Last year, we were able to secure a $450,000 provincial heritage grant that will help fund some of this work, not all of it, but it's an important contribution, and it shows that others see value in the project as well. One of the really cool parts of that project is, not just the restoration of the 4 cottages that are already in use, that are loved by the community, and one being the museum cottage operated by Bowen Heritage. But the cottage that is that's currently not accessible and that will be restored will be a bookable facility. And it's really going to be a cool kind of spot that anyone for a nominal fee can book this facility for an hour or two to, have a birthday party or an event in the park or a community meeting or, whatever the case may be. But it'll be a new amenity that I think people will really, really love. Once that work is done, the building work, the next phase is the site work. So we need to do some improvements to the trails and the orchard and realign the parking and just kind of better integrate it into Snug Cove and the rest of the park. So that will go forward probably later in 2023, 2024. Now, you're quite right that we did originally intend to move forward sooner, but there has been some challenges getting contractors and procuring some of this work. We are indeed in the final stages, and we intend to move forward with that work before the end of the year. So we're quite excited about it.
So what haven't we talked about that we should?
Well, gosh, I mean, there's so much opportunity here at Cape Roger Curtis. And as I said, we're just at the beginning of the process. I think, if we look more broadly on Bowen Island, there's so much going on the island that we're excited about. And we talked a little bit about Crippen Regional Park, and Davies Orchard is of course part of that park. That park is well loved. We're excited about the Davies Orchard project. We're also excited about the recent expansion to the park on Dormant Point and the access that will be moving forward there in the near term. And that's another, really important landscape that is fully protected within the park. And I think will add great value for all regional residents, but, especially Bowen Island residents to have access to that hike from Snug Cove. It's kind of the perfect distance for a hike. It's challenging, but not too challenging. And the scenic values and natural values are just incredible. So there's so much going on, and a lot to look forward to.
So just to wrap up, and to try and bring some calm to this discussion for residents on Bowen, ferry and road trail access, safety, and camping seem to be the hot issues. And I'm hearing you say that those will all be discussed in part of the public process. So the question is, when does that process begin?
And you're quite right. As you said, those are some of the questions that we've heard coming in. And the intention is to, like I said, the first step is to listen to people and understand, we understand the big issues, but what are the questions people asking and what are the specific concerns? And that's going to inform the work and research we do going forward to respond to those. So of course, looking at the traffic study and, infrastructure, and the facilities that are proposed are going to be a part of the planning process. Likely that process will kick off towards the end of 2022 and extend into next year. And we've got a project website up. We've developing an email list where people can get notifications when the process starts, and we'll be working with Bowen Island Municipality to make sure everyone's aware and certainly plugged into that process. What's being considered at this early stage is in many ways a park of the future, right? Like we're not talking about the old school RV park. We're talking about walk-in, bike-in sites. We're talking about group camps. We're talking about tenting facilities. This is tenting. And the thinking behind that is really about equitable access. And we talked about the value of nature and parks. And it's looking at a region and the need to access these things in a way that is not impactful to the land and not impactful to the host community. And it will also be, really beneficial, I think, to the host community. Like a number of look at our other group campsites across the region. The biggest users are often in the immediate host municipality. It's the scout groups, it's the local schools, it's the local sports teams, it's the kids who want to get out and access these places. So there's certainly a local benefit in that regard too. And the solutions to access are not they're not necessarily car driven. They're about shuttles and improving the greenway and working with TransLink to get transit access and really digging into what that will look like and looking at the whole spectrum of solutions. And we need to do that collaboratively, and we'll do it working with the community and Bowen Island Municipality and of course Squamish First Nation and others. So
Yeah, I
sorry,
can't.
Don, that was a
No,
bit of a long answer.
no, it's a perfect answer. And I mean, you've already said everything that needs to be said in terms of what you're prepared to do and how you're prepared to do it and negotiate and work with the community. I liked your comment about not wanting to be impactful to the host community. And if that's an overriding tenet, I think that gives the community some comfort that you're going to take seriously their concerns and address the many issues.
Of course, it's a priority for us, right? We need to understand like I said, what are the questions, what are the issues, and how are we going to respond to those? And of course, there's always questions, there's always concerns, which are understandable, but there are so many benefits. And as I mentioned earlier, we do see with our regional parks that they benefit the entire region for ecologically, for access, for climate resilience, all these things. But there's an especially a high local benefit to having access to a park on a day-to-day basis that has really great outcomes for people. And over time, look across the regional park system, all of the parks are loved and adored by people who live by them. And certainly camping has been discussed a lot at Cape Roger Curtis, but the tent camping is one aspect of the park. This will be a park with trails and open space and access to the beach and viewpoints and places to help conserve nature and learn about, if it is of interest to Squamish Nation, Squamish's use of the land and their culture. So the camping aspect is one part of a complete, fulsome park that would be considered.
Is no camping an option?
I think the park was proposed with the intent to provide an overnight camping experience for those reasons that I mentioned earlier, the need for access and equity of access and the value that experience brings to everyone in the region. So that was a key driver in the purchase of, or in the potential purchase of the land.
So what happens if Bowen decides not to change their zoning?
Oh gosh, I can't look ahead to those kind of outcomes. I mean, ultimately, we're at the beginning of a process. We've worked very closely with Bowen Island Municipality to date, and we'll continue to work with them going forward through all the processes. And as we figure out the future of the park.
That's a good political answer. But it doesn't really answer the question. What happens if? But I guess time will tell.
Well, we've got a long process. We've got a fulsome process ahead of us. And as I said, I think the land was purchased with the intention to provide a complete park experience for, with all the things that I talked about for day use and access over time, and also that overnight access. And yeah, we've got a process ahead of us here, and we'll